Hello, welcome to our cooking class. I am Amy Payne with Summer Harvest Food for Children, and we are doing a cooking class today based on some of the food that we are providing to families that we support over the summer months. So our organization provides families 5 times over the summer and once over winter break food in the way of fresh fruits and vegetables, staples, and we try to help them make a complete meal. And so here, Chef Elizabeth Whitt is helping us today to teach us what to do with all the fresh produce that we have.
Great. So welcome. My name is Chef Elizabeth Whitt, and I am a chef here at Prep Kitchen Essentials in Seal Beach, California. And we do cooking classes, we do in-person classes, virtual classes, do all sorts of things. And I met up with Amy through some board members of this fabulous charity and have been trying to help along the way as much as I can. So I thought I could do some classes and take some food and try and give you some tips and tricks of how to get it done quickly, safely, easily, and kind of just, give you a few different recipes that you might not have had before. So today we're going to do 3 different recipes. We're going to do tomato and cucumber salad because right now, especially if you have a garden, I actually got the tomatoes from my neighbor's garden and the mint from my own garden. The cucumbers, I probably have another neighbor who has them, but we just haven't all gotten together for the exchange yet. But we're gonna make a tomato cucumber salad. It's one of my mom's favorite things. So I always like to make it, and then you can turn it into a million different things. So we're gonna do mint on it today. You could leave it without the herbs and then turn it into something like basil or cilantro. You can kind of take it any direction you like. Then we're going to make a dirty rice, which is basically onion and bell pepper and beef or chicken or pork or some sort of meat cooked in with some rice, and so it becomes muddled in terms of the colors because of the different spices or the meat that you're cooking it in. And it's a really great thing to make and eat it once as it is, maybe with a salad or something like the tomato salad that we're going to make, or as leftovers. It can go really easily into like a stuffed bell pepper, which we have a video for also on our YouTube channel, or you could do stuffed zucchini, which is in season, or eggplant. So it's a really good stuffing for things.
Perfect.
You can make it vegetarian by obviously taking out the meat, and then you could add in some maybe corn and beans that would work together. And then finally, we're gonna make a white bean and chicken chili. So we're just going to do some onion, bell pepper, and I have some turkey, and we have some white beans. It's just kind of a nice, easy thing that freezes really well. So I like to make this on the weekend or whenever I have a minute to do it and let it kind of simmer, and then I'll keep it and we can eat it then, or I'll freeze it and we can defrost it later. So it freezes really well and it lasts for a while too. So it's just one of those things that I like to have on hand because pretty much everybody in my family will eat it. So it's something that I like to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is get going with the dirty rice. So the ingredients are really, there's not many. So we're going to use a bell pepper. We have some beef broth, and we're going to use the can of beef broth and then another can of water. So we'll use that to measure. And if you wanted to, you could use bouillon cubes. You could just choose water as well. But we just want about 28 ounces of liquid. We have some ground beef that we're going to be using. This is 90-10. So when I cook this, we might not get as much fat to drain out as you would if you have like an 80-20 mix. So I'll talk about that as soon as I start to do it. First of all, I'm going to start by cutting up all my vegetables. So I'm going to take my bell pepper, and actually we might do some camera work so you can kind of get up close and personal. So Amy, if you want to grab the camera, yeah. I will show them how to do a bell pepper, and then I'll go straight into the onion. Okay, so for the bell pepper, we want to do, you have to look there. Yeah. Not at what there you go. So for the bell pepper, we want the outside part, but we want to avoid the seeds and then the white membrane on the inside. So my first cut is going to be blind. I'm going to cut around the parts that I don't want. So my first cut, I'm not really sure what's going on, but my second cut, I get this nice little window into the bell pepper, and then I can look through my window and then cut around what I want to avoid. So I'm just now going to cut around the white membrane and the seeds so I don't get them with my pepper. and then just keep going around. And then I will take the parts that I don't want, and this is going to go into my kitchen trash. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then now I have my bell peppers. Now the hardest thing to cut through here on the bell pepper is actually the skin. So what I want to do is use my cutting board to my advantage and let the knife, my sharp end of my knife, come into contact with the cutting board so I can easily cut through that skin. So first off, let me show you how to hold your knife. You want to take your two strongest fingers, your thumb and your forefinger, and pop those onto the back end of the knife. So this bottom third part of the knife is the sharpest part of your knife. It's the heaviest part of your knife. And that's where you want to have the most control. So by actually holding on to that part of the knife with my strong fingers, it's going to give me a better grip and make my cutting a lot easier and nicer. Now I'm going to take my three weaker fingers and wrap them around the blade, and that's going to stabilize this grip. But by holding my knife this way, I have more control over my knife, which means when I actually start to use it, I will use less pressure. So if I do slip, well, first of all, I'm less likely to slip because I have more control over it. And then if I do end up slipping, since I'm using less pressure, I'm less likely to hurt myself as bad. So it's like a win-win. It's going to make things safer for me. And then I think that always, whenever you have things that are safer, you will go faster. So with safety comes efficiency, and it's just a good habit to get into. So I'm going to now slice these into what we call a dice. So a dice is one slice, and then you turn the vegetable and you slice it again. So what I want to do is slice all of these strips, slice all these peppers into strips, and then turn those strips and then slice them again. And that is what a dice is. And then I'm going to move them out of the way and then keep going on the rest of them. Avery, do you want to get me a kitchen scraper in that middle drawer over there? The middle one. Yeah, perfect. So we're going to use this. It's just going to help get everything together. Okay, so slicing it into strips, turn it, and then slice it again. And by using the skin side down, it's a lot easier to cut through the skin. If I was making something like soup, I wouldn't need to cut this up any further. But for this recipe, I like to cut it up smaller just because I feel like it goes better with the rice. It all is the same size. It just all seems to kind of go better together. But there's no right or wrong in this. You can also think about how do you want it to be on your fork and then cut accordingly. Like we're gonna make a soup or a chili, I should say, next. And with that, we could maybe just slice the bell peppers. So the question you want to ask yourself is, do you want your bell peppers to be longer and bigger on your spoon when you're eating your chili, or do you want them to be smaller? So it's up to you. I'm gonna take my scraper, get these ready to go. And now let me show you the onion. So for the onion, I want to dice up my onion. So I'm going to slice off the top part and the bottom part. The top and bottom come off. And then before I peel it, I am going to cut it in half. That is going to do two things. It's going to give me a nice flat surface so that my onion won't be rolling around, but it's also going to make it easier for me to peel the skin off because I've cut it in. So peel the skin off. And then whenever you can, it's always a good idea to cut your vegetables so that you have a flat surface so that it won't roll around on your cutting board, so you won't chase it with your sharp knife, and then you won't end up hurting yourself. So this recipe is going to be a rough chop, meaning I'm not too worried about the pieces being perfect. So for a rough chop, let me show you a nicer dice first. The first way to dice is going to be taking my onion, and then I want you to see that the grain of the onion is going from the top of the bottom to the bottom of the onion. So it's just going this way. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make cuts with the grain of the onion, but I'm not going to go all the way through the onion. And that's so that I can have something to hold on to, and also so that my onion pieces don't just fall apart. So I'm making cuts with the grain of the onion, and the cuts that I'm making are the size of the dice that I'm going to be creating. So this is kind of a small to medium dice. All right, and now I'm going to turn it and I'm going to cut perpendicular to my first cuts. So now I'm going to start at the top, saw my way down, And that is my dice. So now I didn't go all the way through so that it would hold, so I could hold on to it and so it wouldn't fall apart. But now I get to the part where I haven't really cut through it, so it's not going to be the same size, but that's okay. So you could, first of all, if you really want everything to be the same size, and you could stop right here, call it a day, put these in your salsa, because if you're putting this in a salsa, you will be able to see the size, so you will be able to tell. We're going to be cooking this down, so I'm not as worried, but here we go. So that's all the same pieces. Now here I can, if I'm just at home cooking, I don't need to worry about anything. I can just go ahead and take this, put it onto a new flat surface, and then go ahead and continue to slice through. And yes, these pieces are slightly longer than the original pieces, but it's not that big. It's going to cook down, and I don't mind. And then I've used all my onion. So if your recipe calls for 1/2 of an onion and you have this other part of the onion out, you can go ahead and dice it up, and you can always pop these in the freezer. They will be fine to take out. As long as you're going to cook your onion, you can go ahead and put them in the freezer, and that way you won't waste anything. So I like to do that. Let me just show you, because I can, how to slice an onion. So to slice an onion, what we do is we start with our hands on the top of the onion, and then we take our knife and we saw our way down. And then these are our slices. And the reason why I'm going this way, like slicing a rainbow, or what I like to say, against the grain of the onion, is if we'd started over here, we would have pieces that are a lot thicker and harder to break down. So they might not cook as quickly as all of these pieces are going to be, because I've cut them against the grain of the onion. So you can do it either way, but if you want your onions to melt down or cook down faster, this is the best way to do it. And then of course I get to this point where my fingers are a little worried because they're getting too close to my knife. First of all, if you're not a professional, don't try and get your fingers right close to your knife. Keep a nice little distance. So I like to call it a buffer zone in between your knife and your fingers. And when you lose that buffer zone, you need to look for it in a new place. So I'm going to take this again, flip it over to a new flat surface, and then continue on. And that way I can always keep my fingers far enough away from my knife that I don't have to worry about them. And then the last few slices, so right about here, when I've lost that buffer zone, just take your fingers out of the way and then just keep slicing without your fingers working on it. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use all this onion, and I don't mind that some pieces are smaller, some pieces are larger, they're all gonna get cooked down. It's not a big deal. I'm not worried about it. You guys shouldn't be worried about it. It would be a big deal if it wasn't going to get cooked, but this is going to get cooked in the pan with the rice too, so we'll be. Okay, so that's all the preparation that I need for my rice recipe. So I've preheated my pan just as we were sitting here. I just turned the heat on, and I can tell that it's nice and hot. And I am going to turn it down, and I'm going to get my beef out first. So I'm going to start putting my meat in. Now, what I like to do whenever I'm going to be cooking ground meats is, so that I don't get a lot of water releasing into the pan, I put the meat in one little piece at a time. And that way my pan doesn't overheat. Now, I'm also, you'll notice the recipe doesn't call for any oil because I've got a lot of fat in my ground beef, so I don't need any oil in here. So I'm going to be putting it into a dry pan. So you can see there's no oil in the pan because I have plenty of fat here. So I'm going to take my meat and just,
Even with the 4%,
10%.
10%.
Yeah, even with 4%. I mean, there's still 4% fat, so it's still fine, yeah. Okay. And sticking to the pan is not a bad thing because we're going to deglaze it or unstick it. So the way you wash a pan is with soaking it in water. So by adding the onions and the bell peppers, it has tons of water in it. So it's going to start loosening up anything that sticks on the pan too. So sticking is a good thing because it helps brown, and then it creates really nice brown flavor. And since I know we're going to be putting in liquid into this recipe, I know I can unstick everything with that liquid. Okay, so I can go a little faster because I preheated my pan. My pan is really hot, but I'm putting this into the size pieces that I want it to be, so I don't have to worry about stirring it. Because once you start to stir it, you cool down the pan, and then you get a lot of juices that are releasing, and then you are no longer able to brown. So browning takes place at about 320 degrees, and boiling is about 212. So if you have water boiling in your pan, it means you're not going to be browning. And basically, as soon as this meat is browned, I will move it out of the way and I'll add my onions. And then we add our rice, we add our broth, and then we're going. So the one thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to start sticking things to the side of the pan because the sides of the pan are also very hot and people tend to avoid them, but use them to your advantage so that you can use all the heat that you've got. So I'm sticking the meat to the side of the pan so that it cooks quickly. I'm going to season this with some seasoning salt or just some regular salt if you'd like, it's whatever you have. The seasoning salt has obviously extra seasoning in it, so it just adds a little more flavor to it. It's got garlic and all sorts of fun things. I actually don't know. Avery could maybe look. Oh, now can you guys hear the difference? I don't know if you could hear that, but it's much quieter. It's quieter because I just cooled down my pan. Ah. Because I added something colder in, and so now I've cooled down the pan. So now is when I can turn my heat up. And you can also see that it's starting to release liquid, which means that we will no longer brown.
What happens when you get lots of liquid in there? Is there a way to solve that?
Crank up the heat super high, and then next time try and make sure that before you do what you did, that you have your heat up higher. Okay. So I'll go ahead and season that with some regular salt. I'll do some seasoning salt. Seasoned salt. Just more flavor. This has, salt, sugar, spices, onion, garlic, and then magical spices that we don't know about. And, you know what I forgot, Avery? Would you go and get the wooden spatulas over there? Okay, so now I'm going to add in because I have all that liquid in my pan, I now know that it's not going to burn. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll add in my onions. I'd like to add those in. I'll move my meat to the side so that I can make way to start cooking the onions. And what I mean by make way is I actually want, if something is going to cook, it needs to be in contact with the heat. So I've got some browning for flavor, but now I want to start working on my onions and my peppers wilting down and cooking off some of their liquid. So they're all going to go in there. And then this is just going to be a little bit of patience while these cook together. So I'm going to season my vegetables now. The best way to make sure that things are seasoned is to season every time you add something. And what I mean by that, let me show you the rice. So since I'm out and my fingers already have salt on them, I'm now actually going to go ahead and season the rice. And then I don't have to worry about seasoning anymore. So I'm using about a teaspoon of kosher salt or seasoned salt. Total-ish. But as my daughter likes to say, salt is good. Yes. Salt tastes good. So, okay, so I'm gonna let this sit to the side. And then once those vegetables have cooked down a little bit, we'll add in the rice and our broth. So again, we're gonna add 1 can of broth, and then we are going to add in 1 can's worth of water. And then we're gonna bring that to a simmer. Once it's at a simmer, we'll bring it to a boil and then turn it to a simmer. So a simmer is a tiny bubble. And whenever you cook a rice pilaf, you always want to bring it to a boil and then turn things to a simmer. And then that way it'll just cook with the lid on for about 20 to 25 minutes. And then we'll just turn off the heat, let it sit and continue to absorb any extra moisture from all these ingredients. And then we're ready to go. So if you want to make this vegetarian, or I guess vegan for that matter, skip the meat part. And at the end, once your rice and your onions are cooked, then just add in a can of beans and a can of corn, and then you'd get a complete protein because corn and bean and rice make up a complete vegetarian food. So yeah. And again, I didn't show you, but with the 10% fat and since I didn't add any other fat into it, I didn't get a lot of anything that I needed to drain out. But if you are going to use an 80-20 blend of meat, you might have a little more fat, so you could just tilt your pan and then spoon out any of the excess fat. But no need to add any fat in the pan. Into the pan. Yeah.
Okay. So, what season wise, if you're going to be draining off the meat, should you wait to do the seasoning until after you've drained?
That makes sense, but I would still say that it does benefit by getting seasoned earlier too. Okay. So that has enough chance to kind of infuse into things. Okay, so let's get everything ready for our chili recipe, which is going to be very similar items. So we've got, here are the ingredients for our chili. And what I got today when I was at the market, they didn't have any just plain ground chicken or ground turkey. So I got the seasoned ground turkey. It just basically has the same seasonings that we're going to put in there anyways. So it'll be extra seasoned. I have my own seasonings here too. You could forego the seasonings if you have it seasoned in the meat. This one, paprika, and then spices. So it doesn't tell us what it is. But it's basically taco seasoning, which is what this is. Cumin, coriander, did I put in some paprika? That's one of my favorite things. If I didn't, chili powder. And chili powder is just a blend of cumin, coriander, and some chili stuff. So I do call for flour in this if you want it to be a little thicker. I'm not going to use the flour. You can keep it gluten-free. I couldn't remember if there were any gluten-free things around here. So, but it's just to thicken it up. So if you want your chili to be a little thicker, you can toss in a little bit of flour. I'm just going to skip it today because I'm not worried about it being thicker or not thick. And we've got our onion ready to go. I'm going to live dangerously. So while I am cutting up everything and talking to you, I'm actually going to start cooking the onion, which I already showed you. This is just a diced onion. So I'm going to put this in. Now there's no fat in the pan, but I'm going to go ahead and just put the onion straight in. And then what we will do, I'm going to this is lean turkey meat. So it doesn't have a lot of fat, but it probably has 9 grams. That's like 12% fat. So I'll just put in a little bit of olive oil, but not a lot. Oil fat is always optional. So you don't need it to cook. Like these onions without any oil will cook because of the heat. So the oil just adds more flavor to the dish, just like salt. It just adds more flavor. Acidity just adds flavor. Those are flavor enhancers. It will, to some extent, help cooking more evenly by conducting the heat. But these onions are already cooking and there's no oil in them. Put your hand over the flame. It will cook your hand. You don't need oil on your hand. Put oil on your hand and put it over the flame and your hand will taste better. But you don't need it to cook. So I'll just do a teeny bit just for flavor. And so you can see it does change the way things go in there. It starts to cook a little bit faster because it's helping to diffuse the heat or spread the heat. Okay. But it's mostly for flavor. I'm also going to add some salt now because I want to flavor my onions. And as soon as it starts to brown is when I'm going to stir it. I'm going to check on my onions and peppers. So my onions and peppers are browning, so I'm stirring those. You want to grab the camera maybe? And yeah, we'll show everybody because I think we can continue on this recipe. So my onions are in there. Okay, so you can see how I've browned, and all that brown goodness is just going to be flavored. Can you see that? Can you see the browning right there? Yes. Okay, so now you can see that my vegetables have wilted down a bit. I've evaporated some of the liquids. So now we're going to continue on. I'll add in my rice, stir that around, and then my broth.
Is the object to just coat the rice, or is it to actually like toast it a little?
It's just to get it distributed, so coated, get it moved around and make sure everything is combined together. It's not really going to toast because of all the moisture in the pan. I'm going to add broth. So this is 1 can of beef broth. And then I'll add 1 more can of water. And then bring this to a boil. So now that I have the rice in here, I don't want to stir it because I don't want to release the starch. I don't want it to be, I want this to still kind of be separate, the grains of rice to be separate. So I'll just give it a little stir to make sure everybody's happy and to make sure everything's off the bottom of the pan. But that's my last stir. So I'm going to move this off to the side burner, bring this to a boil, and then reduce it to a simmer. Now you can see how my onions have caramelized. So once they've caramelized, now I'm going to give them a stir. If I stirred them ahead of time, then it would have taken them a lot longer to caramelize. So I'm going to stir them around so they don't burn, because browning is the precursor to burning. So once it browns, that's when you know you need to do something before it burns. So in this case, you can stir. Another thing you can do is you can stir and turn down the heat. So right now, I stirred and I'm turning down the heat, and now these can sit there while I'm doing everything else. So now I'm going to continue on doing some more things like my bell pepper. So this is a red bell pepper that I'm going to cut up now, and do the same thing. So slice around the parts that I don't want. Oops.
Such a cute little red bell pepper. I thought it was a tomato at first.
I know, yeah. And then just chop this up. So this is again a chili. So, you know, how do you want it on your spoon? My mom, if I'm serving this to my mom, she likes really big chunks. If I'm serving it to myself, I like to have small pieces. So yeah, can't go wrong. Whatever makes you happy, do it. Or whatever your kids will eat, do it. That matters too.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. And this is gonna go in with my onions. And basically a soup is pretty awesome because you can just dump everything in. You don't really have to worry about being cooked or not cooked, because it's gonna simmer in the liquid. So I'm gonna go ahead and start putting my taco or my turkey meat in. And I'm gonna do the same thing I did with the beef, which is break it up into small pieces so that I don't have to do it later. So it's just really easy to pop it into the right size pieces, and also use the sides of the pan like I showed you. The sides of the pan are really hot. Pop those in, short pieces, and then, oh, I need to show you garlic. I gotta watch. Turkey meat goes in. I'm starting to lose my patience. You have to have patience while you're. Okay, I at a boil for my rice. I don't know if you can see over my big pot, but I'm at a boil, so I'm going to turn it down low, turn it to a simmer, tiny bubbles, put the lid on, and set the timer for 20 minutes. Hey Siri, set the timer for 20 minutes, please. Okay. So that's good. Now that I've added more to my pan, what should I do to the heat?
Burn it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now that I have cold meat in my pan, I want it to cook. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it all the way up. I turned it down so I didn't burn my onions, But then once you know that you're going to be adding things into your pan, you can turn it. I'm now, since my hands are still full of turkey meat, I'm going to smush the meat up the sides of the pan because that's where it's hottest. The metal, the heat, the flame is hitting the metal and then conducting through the metal. So it's going to cook faster if I use those sides of my pan. Although you should be careful, some pans are better than others, meaning that some pots and pans might have thinner, these are really thick pans, meaning they don't have a tendency to burn. So some pans, if they're not thick enough, they might burn too quickly. They burn on this side. Yeah, well, they might burn all around, but yeah. But you don't need a million, you need a nice pan, but you don't need a million nice pans. One is good. Okay, let me show you how to do garlic. You might want to stay close for this one. So to peel the garlic, first of all, I was doing a price check today at the store, and it's basically, I swear it's cheaper to get pre-peeled garlic.
Really?
Yeah, it was like $1 for about 16 cloves of garlic, and it was $2.50 for like 30 something. So more than 30. Anyways, so I'm not really doing the math quite exactly there, but it's very similar in price. Yeah. Which makes me think I'm glad I buy it. Anyways, but here's how you peel garlic. So this is the root end, the harder end, the tougher end. I want to trim that end. So just trim it off, but I want to leave the rest of it on there. So do that on all of your garlic cloves that you're going to use. So trim off that tougher end, the root end, and keep the stem end on. Then you're going to take your garlic cloves and one at a time with your knife or with a flat bottom something or other. If you don't want to use your knife, use a bowl. Smash it one at a time. If you do two at a time, they work against each other and one of them flies. Then pinch the edge that you did not slice off, and then it should just fall out like that. So pinch the part you did not trim, and usually comes out, and that's your garlic. And then I'm just gonna chop it up real quick and then throw it in. This is for, well, you can put garlic in anything, but this is for the chili. I'm just slicing it. It'll break down enough. There we go. With garlic. Now, I didn't put the garlic in with the onions and the peppers because the garlic is so much smaller. If I put the garlic in with everything else, it would have just burned or started to get really brown, and that would be pretty bitter. I'm gonna lay on the spices a little bit more because at my house we like them. So there's all those different spices that are listed on there. You could do taco seasoning, fajita seasoning, just straight cumin is fine. But cumin, coriander, and smoked paprika are always fun. And let's see. Oh, we're gonna do some chicken broth. Let me show you. Yeah, let's peek over here. So that looks pretty good. And like I said, it's a soup, so this is all gonna simmer anyways. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw in everything else now, except I'm not gonna throw in the beans because the beans are cooked. So they don't need to cook very long. So we're gonna do chicken broth. You could do bouillon cubes again, or better than bouillon is a good one. And now we want to just add as much water as you want liquid. So I added, that was 1 can's worth. So it just depends how thick you want your chili. So I think that's probably just perfect. And now we'll add in some corn. And this is just going to simmer down to cook the vegetables. And then tomatoes. Tomatoes. Forgot about those. So we're going to add in a large can of tomatoes, just because that's what I had. You could add a small can. That's a 28-ounce can of tomatoes. And then I'm just gonna rinse this out to get a little more. And some corn.
Now you didn't drain the corn.
I didn't drain the corn because it's just corn cooking liquid, so that's fine. Same thing with beans. We're not going to drain the beans. Beans get put in dry, and then they get pressure cooked basically in the cans. So it's just bean cooking liquid. So we'll just leave it in there because we're making a soup like dish.
And the corn's okay to sit in.
Yeah, it's got a nice skin around it basically. The kernel has a nice protective coating, so it won't break down that much. It doesn't need to go in now because it is already cooked, but it's not going to really hurt it. So that's pretty much done. We're just going to add in the beans, and then we can garnish it with some cilantro. But here's one thing if you want to do, if you're going to garnish it with some fresh cilantro, I like to use the stems and simmer it in there as well. I'm going to take off some cilantro that I've washed already. I'm going to try and keep it in the bunch that's in. So I have a bowl. I'm going to put the fresh cilantro to the side. And then I'm going to take the stems and simmer it. Now what that's going to do is it's going to infuse a really nice cooked cilantro flavor into my chili. So I have all my stems without leaves are basically right here. So I'm going to leave them on so I have something to hold onto to protect my fingers. I'm going to roll the part of the cilantro that are where all the leaves are. And I'm not going to mind that there are some of those stems because the stems of the cilantro taste just like cilantro. They are a little stringier, but if I cut them small enough, it's not a big deal. So I'm just slicing until I get to the point where I have more stems than leaves. And that's when I'm going to tie up those stems and use them like a tea bag almost, a cilantro tea. Take stems, take some kitchen twine, drop it. And this, if you're looking to win any chili contests, this is what will definitely be really good. So just tying it so that it won't unravel. We don't need to do this good job on it. And then coordinated. One tie. Otherwise, ask a friend. And pop it in and just simmer it away, and then you just fish this out afterwards. So it's just gonna give you a nice flavor. So anytime you're using parsley or cilantro, go ahead and tie up those stems and simmer it in your pot. And then this is going to be used as a garnish afterwards. So that's it. Excellent. Okay, that's for later with the beans. Sweeten that extra from the garlic. Now, the last recipe is summer tomato, cucumber.
It's one of my favorite.
Yes. Now this one, it has, oh, I did, let me go back to the chili. So you could use some chipotle chilies. They come in a can. This is like almost a cup's worth of spicy chilies. So that's a lot. It's pretty strong. So you never really finish the whole can in one recipe. So what you do is either put any left. So use whatever you want. Then we're not going to use them because my mom is not like spicy. So we're not going to use these. But if you wanted to get a nice, so chipotle chilies are like smoked jalapenos that are in this nice acidic adobo sauce that has a lot of spices and some vinegar in it. So it's a really fun thing to add if you can handle the spice, but you never seem to use the whole can. So use what you need and then freeze what you don't need. So we label it because we also do the same thing to tomato paste. So when you open a can of tomato paste and you can't use it all, freeze up the other, the rest of it, but freeze it in whatever size you're going to be using it in. So if this looks like 2 chipotle chilies, that's probably a really good portion size for not being too spicy. So just every 2 chilies, wrap it up either in a plastic wrap or in a container, and then you are good to freeze it and keep it. Use it next time you need it. You don't have to worry about throwing it out. Okay, so we have some yummy tomatoes, some cucumber. Now this cucumber is, we're just, oh, and some red onion. We're just gonna dice this up. And these are all things that don't really get harmed by being in vinegar. So you can make this kind of at the beginning of the week and then just eat it for a few days. Or you could just eat it all at once. So depending on how you, my mom doesn't mind it later, you know, after it's been sitting a few days. I tend to like it now the first day. So I tend to be able to, you know, do what you do. So this is an English cucumber, meaning it doesn't have a wax coating. So it's wrapped in plastics and I just removed the plastic and then I washed it. But like an American cucumber, they tend to have a little bit of a wax coating. So you probably want to peel the American cucumbers. But this one was wrapped in plastic, so I'm not going to peel it. The peel tends to be just a little more bitter than the inside. So if you think it's too bitter, then that's when you would peel it. The Persian cucumbers that you see nowadays, those also are usually not coated in wax, so you don't need to peel those either. And they come usually in a plastic bag. You just have to make sure you use them pretty quickly because since they're not coated in wax and they're not sheeted in plastic, then they do go bad a little faster. So sometimes you just need to cut it up and get it in the fridge. So I'm gonna, now the name of the game here is how do you want it on your fork? So what do you want the salad to look like? Also, if it's going to be kept longer, the smaller you dice something up, the faster it's gonna go bad. So if you want it to last longer, keep it in larger pieces. And if you're gonna eat it right away, then you could cut it into small pieces. So that's a good rule of thumb. So I will start with the onion. Then I'm gonna do call for slices of this. Yeah, slice. I was gonna say I'm gonna do slices of this because that way people can avoid them pretty easily, or jab them with their fork if they want to grab onto them. So I'm going to do the same thing we did before, which is take the onion and slice off the top and the bottom. The bottom, the top.
And a red onion is a little bit more mild than a yellow onion.
We kind of have tried to ask ourselves these questions.
Oh.
But we have no definitive answer.
It's just different.
We could do a blind taste test right now. Sydney, do you want to volunteer?
Raw onion?
Yeah. Do you want to do the blind taste test?
I'll try the blind taste test. I don't know if I can taste the difference though.
So you just tell me which one's, well, which one's spicier. This is between a sweet onion and a red onion, which that's kind of a, I don't know if that's a fair. Okay, close your eyes, Amy. You will not know which one I picked. You don't want to try it?
Okay.
Okay, put out your hand. Okay, that's the first one. Okay, close your eyes. Put out your hand. Okay, oops, wait, there you go.
This sweet one.
Don't open your eyes. Okay, next one.
No. Okay. I guess I should taste the other one.
We're gonna taste it on the other side.
That's a good idea.
Mm.
Mm. I feel like the first one had a sweetness at the end that the second one doesn't have.
I feel like the first one had a spice.
Avery, you want to try?
A spice that I didn't expect. But
Yeah, it was a little bit more complex. The first
they
one.
weren't drastically different, right?
No,
Yeah.
they
Okay,
weren't.
so I'm hiding. So the first one was actually I felt like sweeter.
I was the first one was the red onion.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
Yeah, it doesn't. It
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It never does.
It doesn't
That's why I
matter.
love doing
Yellow,
that.
brown, white, whatever. I mean, and if you think about all the taco stuff that you get, it's all white onions, and it's never too oniony, the white onions. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, I cut off the tops and the bottoms of the cucumber. This one was getting a little mushy, so I don't like mushy cucumbers, so I cut it off. And then I'm gonna cut it in half so it's more manageable, and then I'm gonna cut So see how it's rolling? That's, remember I said whenever you can, get a flat surface. So I'm going to cut this in half, use that flat surface so it doesn't roll around. And then I'm going to make this super easy. I am going to slice it down the middle and then cut it into big fork size, bite size chunks. And that's going to be the cucumber.
And on the English cucumber, you definitely don't need to take out the seeds, but on a,
I love the seeds no matter what kind of cucumber it is.
okay.
I mean, that's my favorite part. So I would never take them out. If you wanted to take them out, once you cut them into halves, then cut them into quarters, then you can go in at an angle, like that, and then take out the seeds. That's, yeah, that's my favorite part. So I'm gonna eat that. My grandmother, though, I mean, she would take out the seeds from tomatoes, from cucumbers, but to her credit, she was oftentimes like prepping for salads. Like she would make a big bowl of vegetables and then put it in her salads for the rest of the week. So she would cut up cucumber and a tomato and celery and carrots and keep that in a container. So she didn't want the extra liquid.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, no, I don't do that. She had, she did not work full time. So, I mean, I do. And actually, by the time I was watching her do all this, she was retired too. From, I mean, everybody was in their later years of, you know, whatever. Okay, so that's my cucumber and my onion. They're in there. And actually, what I should do, because these tomatoes are super ripe at the moment, so I don't want to toss them around too much. So you always need to think about what you're doing to your food. Is your food almost like, did you get peaches that are like almost smushed to oblivion? You don't then want to like toss them around. You want to do as little as possible. So these tomatoes, you want to feel them? They're very soft. So I don't want to toss them around too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save these for last and then put all of everything on here. So all my lemon juice, my herbs, like get all of that tossed around, because it's not going to hurt my cucumbers. It's certainly not going to hurt my onions, but it would hurt my tomatoes. So I've got my mint from my garden. Like a week ago, it looked beautiful, and now it's kind of looking a little brown, but it's still fine. And I'm just picking the leaves off of the stems. This is not like cilantro and parsley. So for these guys, you do want to pick them off the stems because these stems are not as pleasant to eat. Just trying to get these. And then I'm going to roll them up. And again, if you love mint, what did I call for? A quarter of, oh, this is nowhere near a quarter of a cup. If you love mint, use a quarter of a cup. That's a lot of mint. I might change the recipe by the time you guys get. We're recording a little earlier. I'm probably going to go in and change that. I would just say maybe like a teaspoon of mint, because mint is pretty strong. So
yeah. Especially if it sits for a while, doesn't it get stronger? Yeah. So, but to my point that if you love mint, then put a ton of mint in. If you don't like mint at all, don't put any mint in there. You know, put no herbs. Put cilantro, put basil, put parsley, or just nothing at all. It's still going to be delicious. So I'm just going to slice up my mint just a little bit. I suppose I could do more. So if you're wondering if this is good or not, like I am right now from my garden, you know, it's a little brown. How bad can it be? So if you want to know how bad it can be, just taste it. It tastes like mint. It's pretty strong mint too, so I don't need that much. It's like a very strong pepperminty mint. I don't remember what kind we put in there, but it's definitely strong. So slicing it up nice and thin is going to be good. So I'm just going to roll it. Okay, so there's mint. The other thing I'm going to do is add some lemon juice. If you don't have lemon juice, use some red wine vinegar or any kind of vinegar. My lemon is over here. These are my neighbors. Different neighbors. No, same neighbors' lemons. Or maybe my cousins. Anyways, I get produced from all around. These are the best stuff. So I'm going to do lemon juice because I have a million lemons still. And then some olive oil. Okay, that's my 20-minute timer. Just add my olive oil. I don't need that much. Although
the extra juice, you can throw some lettuce, you know, when you're going to serve this, you can put some lettuce down and then, you know, kind of have it in your salad dressing. Good. Don't throw away that juice. So that was my 20-minute timer for my rice. And I want to check, so I remember I said 20 to 25 minutes. So I can still see there's quite a bit of liquid still there. So I'm going to keep cooking it for another 5 minutes. And so I can get rid of that liquid. Hey Siri, set a timer for 5 minutes, please. Then I think this is gonna be done. I'm gonna be done now. Are you gonna leave the lid? I'm gonna leave it on off so I can see what's going on. And I put the lemon juice in. I did not put salt. Not yet. Salt. Salt is, in this case, it's going to release the liquid. So if, let's say you're making this for, like you're having people over or you're making it for dinner time or something, and you want to get it ready, don't add the lemon juice or the salt until right before you eat it. And then it'll keep some liquids in. But again, it's fine to let it sit. Like my mom will eat this for the next 3 days and it'll be great. Okay, I'm going to toss that around. Let me do this. And then we'll add the tomatoes. And then we'll also add the beans into the chili, and we're done. So I would serve the salad with the dirty rice tonight. I would put the chicken chili in the refrigerator, half in the fridge, half in the freezer, serve it tomorrow. Then I would take the dirty rice leftovers and pop it into like a bell pepper, zucchini, and bake it for a stuffed thing. Or freeze it and then use it for a stuffing later. So yeah, I'm just a big proponent of making things and freezing a lot of it, and bringing it out a couple of days later or a few weeks later, and then people don't remember that you just had it, and then they're happier to eat it. Okay, so I'm going to take the tomatoes and I'm now going to cut them in half with my sharpest knife, and then cut them in quarters. Then I just want to take out this little stem end right here. Let's see that. So you can just take it out like this, or if you feel like you want to, you can just do a little V cut. And then cut these into nice big chunks. Too small because these are already cut soft. They look delicious. Every day. Alrighty, there we go. And then now we can do it in toss. We'll see. Now you could add nuts to this, add cheese to this, or just leave it as it is. And then I'm also going to put a little of the lemon in the chicken chili. It's always a good flavor to add to chicken dishes, these flavors in them. Or we could have put them in the rice, but since I had that other half a lemon, might as well use it up. Okay, let's see what else. Beans. Mm-hmm. So the beans are going in my chili. I guess we could do a bowl. Should we do a bowl? If you grab a bowl and actually make it 2 bowls. The smaller ones, just sure. Yeah, small. Oh, I turned off my rice. Yeah. That's not a very pretty dish, but it's like comfort food, right? So I will scoop up some chili. Cilantro. Oh, and then you just take this out. Trash bag.
That's cooked cilantro totally changes
Yeah,
even just the scent. You're like,
yeah.
oh,
You
that's
can you smell the difference, right?
Yeah.
So in coriander is just the seed of cilantro. So this also has
oh,
chili. So this is not very thick. That flour would have thickened it up a little bit. I think I added a little more tomato to it as well. So all of those things made it a little bit less thick. Then I would just serve this 50-50. And then I would serve some of this salad on the side. And feta would be great with this. Like I said, nuts for crunch. And then this was really supposed to be over here, but I don't want it to go to waste, so we'll put it over here. But to be fair, we could have put parsley, we could have put basil, would have all been great. But there's our rice and our veggies, and there's our chicken or turkey white bean chili. And there we go.
they look amazing.
So now if you guys have any questions on any of the recipes, I think I put my email. I'm planning on putting my email at the top of the recipes somewhere. So you can email me. Please feel free if you have any questions. I've made mistakes, so maybe I made a mistake in the recipe. So yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And reach out to me too.
Yes, thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope that you learned something, how to use some great ingredients and have an easy, quick meal and how to do quick meals. So thank you.
All right, take care. See you next time.